MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming. Welcome to the MedBix Webcast. This is Ramana Annamaraju. I'm not Albert Einstein, but even Einstein cannot save lives. But my guest is going to save lives. She can save lives. My guest speaker. I'm going to, this is a program. I'm going to talk with one of the leading rescue care nurses who is providing training, education, and leadership for the other nurses. I'm going to talk with her, and after that, I'm going to present a topic on a car, and then a good man and a bad man, evil and a good. They caused the healthcare catastrophe, the car and the evil man. And then now I'm going to talk about that, how we are affecting the entire generation of people, affecting that simple act of the car doing the different things in car. That is going to be exciting. And let me bring Susan Davis. Is a rescue. She's a nurse, critical care nurse. She has a long association with the American Heart Association, and then she knows very well how to train that rescue. A lot of we don't understand, really. A lot of public don't understand the things that happen during the accidents or heart attacks or stroke. Actually, we go to the hospital. There, the patients, the first people to see is the critical care nurses. They are the true saviors. They are true frontline health workers. They're unsung heroes of medicine. Let us talk with Susan Davis. Let me bring her on the stage. She is one of the top ones in that one. Welcome, Susan. Welcome, Susan, to MedBix Webcast.
Good evening, Ramana. Thank you so much for having me. This is a real treat.
Thank you. So, tell me about your background a little bit, if you don't mind. Just give me some of your background so people know about it.
Sure. So I am a critical care nurse and I am a resuscitation education specialist. I did begin my nursing career in trauma and emergency. So to your point, we are the front line. We're the first ones there. Generally, of course, there's a full team that responds with us if you're in the emergency room. So I did some time in emergency trauma. I actually, when I was working as a trauma nurse, I went and got my paramedic license. You actually have to get your EMT first and then your paramedic. I was doing a little bit of flight nursing. And then I worked in a CV ICU, so with some open heart patients. And then I transitioned into my position that I am in now. For the past decade or so, I've been the director of a large American Heart Association program for a large healthcare system here in Southwest Florida. And now I am the resuscitation education specialist. And I am also the founder of CoPrep, a resuscitation education program. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
So, what inspired you to be a nurse? Some people have what kind of inspiration? Who inspired you to become a nurse? A critical care nurse, particularly very high stress environment. What inspired you?
Well, I was always interested in medicine. Veterinary medicine was really my original background, and I worked in large animal medicine. I worked with horses and cattle on large scale cattle ranches before I became a nurse. But I actually lost my father to a sudden cardiac arrest, and it was one of those very he's a very healthy, just turned 70-year-old man, very healthy, very active, and he had a sudden cardiac arrest and there was no bringing him back. There was no saving him. And I was intrigued about how quickly and how sudden it can happen with little or no signs or symptoms at the time. I didn't recognize what I would recognize now, nor did he. But he was having some discomfort the night before. He disregarded it, and then the following morning, that was it. And so I spent some time studying sudden cardiac arrest, and then that intrigued me to sudden cardiac arrest response. And I was intrigued, and I wanted to study more. So I did go back to school, and I wanted to become a doctor. And as I looked at the different models of care, I really felt strongly about becoming a nurse doctor, which is what I am now. So I did go back to school and got into emergency and trauma and then cardiac, and that's where I am today.
So we see a lot of shows. They say code blue. What is a code blue, Susan?
Code blue, code blue. So when a code blue is called, usually an overhead in a hospital, it means in general, it is a cardio or pulmonary arrest. So someone has either stopped breathing or their heart has stopped working, and or both. And we have just very few moments. We were meant to start compressions within 1 minute, and we're meant to use our electricity to defibrillate if it's a rhythm that can be defibrillated within 2. So we call the code blue, saying there is somebody either not breathing or their heart has stopped, and or both, and we need to get there pretty quick to figure out what's going on to see if we can save that patient.
So to put all the resources immediate, right? So it requires a teamwork. How does that work? The teamwork it has to be like a perfect choreography that has to be met. Can you explain that teamwork of that saving lives?
I love your words of perfect choreography, because that's exactly what it has to be. It has to be perfect choreography. I mean, the majority of cardiac arrests actually happen at home in your living room, and then you're meant to figure out what to do until help arrives. In the hospital, that choreography is something that really needs to be practiced, because it depends on where the person is, where the patient is when the arrest happens, and who's there, who's closest to that patient begins this chain of what has to happen pretty quickly. So nurses are generally the first ones to discover that a patient is not breathing and or not responsive. So there starts the first parts of the team. So the nurses generally are there, the first rescuer. The second rescuer is the first person that's closest to that nurse and hears that she calls for help, or he. The third person hopefully is the closest to the crash cart. Hopefully the crash cart's not that far away. So those are the first three, critical roles that are part of the team. And they're responsible generally for those first 2 to 6 minutes. And then right around minute 4 or 4, 5, 6, a whole cohort of people show up. So once that is called overhead, all the other stakeholders show up. We have providers, physicians, pharmacy, we have charge nurses, respiratory therapy. The numbers that come in, and there's much more. There's many more roles. On average, I mean, a resuscitation team on average is 6 core. There's 6 core people that need to be there to run this code, but we have so many other departments that show up to help. So if it's not well choreographed, it can be a pretty chaotic scene.
That's where you come in the picture, right? You train them. What kind of a training you provide for those nurses that they can do that choreography that you're mentioning, that don't miss the missteps. They don't make missteps and cause a life. So what do you do that? What kind of a education they need, and how that works? Your training.
So in general, everyone in healthcare, there are basic requirements to even be at the bedside for anyone in healthcare, and it generally begins with a basic life support course. And that's really what most people in healthcare need, basic life support. Of course, if you're going to get into different areas, little more the critical care areas, then the requirement is advanced cardiac life support. And then if it's a pediatric area, pediatric life support. And then there's more. But beginning with just the basic life support, that training is once every 2 years. And so we all have to have that. And it's generally in a classroom in a land far away from where this critical event is happening, low frequency, high risk event. And if they don't happen very often and you don't get to practice in your environment with your equipment and your team, chances are you're going to hesitate. So we do have, most hospitals have critical care teams, rapid response teams, or critical care outreach teams that when they hear that code blue, they come. But again, it tends to be, well, it could be in 30 seconds. It could be 6 minutes, 9 minutes. It could be the second code. So what I train is the major focus is those first 2 to 6 minutes. So I train the basic life support response. I also do the critical care response, but in my experience, if we can't master those first 2 to 6 minutes, then minute 6 is kind of rough around the edges anyway. I mean, honestly, everything that is needed to save a life is on the outside of the crash cart. So, and we generally skip those things. We skip, the backboard, the pads, turning it on, getting it to the room, practice plugging and unplugging, clearing the space, making sure that the compressions are not only adequate but excellent. They have to be excellent.
So then, is it okay just a basic life support system, or you need ACLS, advanced cardiac life system, and trauma ATLS? You need all of them together, because we don't know who is coming to the emergency room, right? They have to be qualified in all of those certifications. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. We all have all of them, and so that when we get to that point, we're all ready. But again, the mindset generally is we go straight to those ACLS algorithms. We start thinking of the drugs and thinking about the rhythms. But what if we're not there? And what if this is in an inpatient environment? What if it's not the emergency room or the ICU, and we're in what I call the hamburger of the hospital?
Okay.
The entire middle of the hospital. All of our other specialties are there. Post-op patients, ortho, OB, where these types of occurrences are very rare. So in that instance, everybody in the middle of the hospital in general is only basic life support trained. Yet the equipment that they have available to them, a manual defibrillator, in general is meant to be run by an advanced cardiac life support person. So
Interesting.
I train that we shouldn't, none of the algorithms, Romana, say recognize the problem, call for help, begin compressions, and then wait for the other team to arrive.
So
That's
there's
just
a
not.
lot of peripheral things, not just a cash card, just giving some jump start, but there is a lot of other peripheral things that you need to be coordinated. Is that right? What you're saying?
That orchestra, that finely orchestrated, event. We have to zig and zag. There's a lot of people that come into a small space. We have got to get our critical care equipment in there. We've got to get the patient in an ideal position for the best compressions. The pads have to go on. The machine has to be used. So we train a lot on the defibrillator. We use the equipment on the outside of the cart. Now, if in all teams, and we have to throw in a little sidebar here, post-pandemic, even pre-pandemic, but post-pandemic, a lot of our nurses are, and not only just nurses, but our team members are new. So if they've not been in a code in a critical care environment, and they haven't handled that equipment and or been with a patient that's coding, then generally what will happen is they'll either hesitate, they'll fight, flight, or freeze. And so we have to practice and drill in that type of a scenario so that everybody, regardless of your job description, can handle respirator 1, 2, and 3 until the team arrives. And if you look at all the research out there, the highest and best evidence says that it's compressions and electricity that save the life. So that's our priority. When everybody else in advanced critical care, they're looking at the algorithms, they're thinking about the drugs. But, it's a little late by the time we get to the drugs, frankly.
Susan, high pressure, that kind of high pressure environment you're in, taking care of the patients in the code blue situations. What about you personally? You means all the nurses involved in this one, their emotional, physical health. Does it affect this kind of a high pressure environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've discovered, well, when you spoke with a lot of amazing physicians and healthcare people on your podcast here, on your show, but we each tend to kind of migrate to an area that we are comfortable in. So I find that critical care people are kind of a breed of their own. They kind of migrate to something like the ER, or they migrate to the ICU. But I find that there's a lot of people in other specialties that would like to go to critical care, but something like this holds them back. So it does affect you some of us handle it better than others. It's just kind of a natural way of being for us. But we do have built in debriefing sessions, and that's super important, especially for new nurses, or if this does not happen to you very often. And sometimes the patient makes it, sometimes we get the patient to the higher level of care, and sometimes the patient does not make it. And so it's important to do a debrief right then and there before everybody leaves, to say, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? I mean, we lost a patient, or bravo, awesome teamwork. We moved this patient. We've got, ROSC, and our patient's gone to a higher level of care.
Do they have a special hospitals or healthcare systems provide any kind of a psychological help and the mental health counseling? Do they provide that for the critical care nurses? Are there
Yes,
any
they
specific
do.
programs there available?
Yes, and in every system I've ever worked for, there's always been definitely mental health resources for sure, and for all critical events. I mean, a trauma within the hospital outside of a patient. So yes, there's wonderful resources for nurses for mental health.
I had a friend who used to run a hospices. I used to go there every day. Somebody is dying. I could not take it. I said that, do you want to be administrator? I said, no. Oh, I could not able to take that. Seeing everybody every day, somebody dying in ER, you see a lot of deaths. That's a gunshot wounds or trauma or a cardiac arrest. This kind of things. How do you incorporate that kind of a mental mindset to face that kind of situations? What kind of tools they have actually to face this kind of a situations?
Again, I think there's something in us that inherently makes us
You have to be.
um, fit for that particular job. I personally always found it a blessing. I mean, I've delivered babies in the emergency room, and I've seen a lot of people leave this planet through the emergency room. For me, I always felt it was a blessing. I felt like I was the one that was there with them, and I would send them with dignity and respect in a way that nurses do every single day. So I think if it's not your cup of tea, perhaps you would work in a different area than a department that has so much of it.
I'm from India originally. Then I went to school here, but when my father was crossing the road one day, and he was 80 years old, and some drunk driver hit him, and there is no trauma network in India. So he was taken to the closest hospital. They coordination is horrible. I was on the phone, he from here, and then my brothers are there. It is coordination is still very primitive coordination. There is not coordination non-existent actually. That when you're saying the choreography, there is no choreography at all. There's zero. So that kind of people, my father died because of that reason. You could have been saved easily. So there is a lot of deaths happening. India is becoming a superpower now. They're becoming like China and India. They have a lot of resources. We need really in this area because there's a lot of traffic on the streets. People are rushing to the offices, a lot of call centers. So what we need is a good um, training program in India to install in the hospitals, even a basic clinics itself, and moderate clinics, medium clinics. They need this program. So do you think all the other countries really could use your help in that direction?
Well, first of all, what a horrible story about your father. I'm so sorry.
Uh,
That's just a terrible story. I mean, it's a human right. It's a basic human right to have care, to be cared for. So if you have a heart, you qualify for my training. So I don't care where on the planet anybody is. I'm right now ready to go wherever. In fact, it's funny you should mention, because I am working with a team in India right now, and there's a couple hospitals in their area that I'm working towards perhaps heading to this year. I'm really excited about that. So in answer to your question, if you have a heart, you qualify. This stuff does not have boundaries, it
yeah,
doesn't have borders. So I'd love to work in India.
actually, more I talk with the nurses, they are the most compassionate people. They understand. They are the true patient advocates. So let me present something that is very interesting. Both of us can watch and you can do. I'm going to talk about something interesting part. I'm going to bring you to this side, both of us. Okay. So I'm going to talk about this a car, one fine car, one evil man, root cause of all healthcare catastrophe still we are facing. Autism spectrum went up, children, criminal behavior went up, intelligence level 800 million points overall went down. This is a really studies done. Let me show you what that is. Martin Luther King said that when evil men plot, good men plan. We are both unfortunate. So that is a very mantra for me. So there is a health catastrophe happened. This is an evil man. This is a good man. The car is in between Cadillac car. I will explain to you why that came in the picture. In 1908, a Belle Isle Bridge in Detroit, there is a woman got stuck on the Belle Isle Bridge in 1908. Some passerby wanted to help, and then to her for her car. So they used to have a cranking. If you know, in the 1908, they have a crank car. You have to crank it. If I will show you how the crank looks like. That looks like that. I used to, when I was in India, I used to see that because all the leftover cars used to come to my village. So I used to see this kind of cars. So you have to do that. These cars, Byron Carter, his name is Byron Carter. He owns a car company. He was helping this woman, so that cranking the rod hit him in the face, and eventually he died. He's a good friend of Cadillac founder Henry Leland. So he was distraught, and he wanted to create a self-starting car without cranking that rod. So he hired an engineer. His name is Thomas Midgley Jr. He hired an engineer to find a self-starting car. He's kind of a smart guy, no question. So Thomas Midgley Jr. what he did was he found a self-starting. He found the spark plug and all those things. He invented it, and then he created the self-starting car. But there is one big problem happened. It's called a knocking. Knocking is that, if you see that in India, I used to see that in tractors, that pipe that you see, that the exhaust pump moves, shakes all the time. Engine shakes. A lot of people in my village used to stop in 1900s, early 1900s. That's a big problem in even America, that they stop and then it's knocking. It knocks because the gas the gas has a problem. Is the piston mistiming of the piston? It is actually knocking happens. So it's a big problem. What he did was this Thomas Midgley Jr. What he did was he added a lead to the gasoline, a small catalyst. So the lead, that was a big hit. That was a knocking went down, and then that is a big. So in Indianapolis 500 in the 1923, all three winners used a leaded gasoline. They added a lead in the gasoline. So all the three winners are the user leaded gas for their cars. So that is the explosion. So the unholy alliance started. General Motors, DuPont, Standard Oil, now Exxon Mobil started a corporation called Ethyl Corporation. They advertise it as a anti-knocking compound. Lead is an anti-knocking compound. Leaded gasoline. But there are people, skeptics there. 1950 was exploded with the cars with the leaded gas. You see all the streets of the United States were filled with the leaded gas cars. Then leaded explosion in products, paint, the pipes are made by lead, and then cosmetics, batteries, cosmetics. The people putting on their faces, the lead system inside these paints and everything. So it exploded. They saw the value of the lead, and they were using everywhere. But there are skeptics. The 150 years ago, before even lead started, Benjamin Franklin in Pennsylvania Gazette, he wrote that there is a problem with the dangers of the lead. Lead is dangerous. MIT and Yale, they both published the dangers of the lead. But Thomas Midgley Jr., he didn't want to believe. He says that, no, I don't know whether he believed or not, but he was demonstrating drinking the gasoline, leaded gasoline. See, nothing happened to me. and then throwing up and then showing up to lit up the fire. And he's saying that nothing happened to me. See, that is a very safe. That's what he said. That is the evil side of the talk about it. You know that this guy, the Standard of Exxon Mobil, now Standard Oil at the time, we do not feel justified in giving up what has come to the industry like a gift from heaven on the possibility that hazard may be involved in it. Frank Howard, president of Standard Mobile, he said that when they use the corporations use a God's name, I'm always skeptical. You know, so they use it a God's name. But there are two unsung heroes in this process. You know that they were talking about the lead, dangers of the lead. Claire Cameron Patterson is from Oak Ridge actually originally. He worked on the Manhattan Project, nuclear uranium project. That I'm a physicist, so I understand. I remember enriching uranium U-235 to U-238 in Oak Ridge. I went to Oak Ridge. My friend lives there, Ramu Palluri. Probably his father used to work with him. He was in 1922, he was born in, then eventually ended up in Caltech. He wanted to find out Earth's age of the Earth. So that was, he was working for National Geological Society. So he wanted to find the Earth's, the age of the Earth. So he was going to zircon crystals. Basically, you can go to the mining site and like a diamonds you can pick up and then see the zircon is crystals and see they wanted to see you can carbon dating any radioactive materials or the actually clocks of the universe. They can tell you when they came in and exactly you can measure the time. So he was looking for the zircon crystal inside and he found a lead inside. Zircon crystals not supposed to have any lead. He was surprised. And then he went to the ocean, on the top of the ocean, and then took the ocean's liquid, the water, and then there is a lead on the ocean, in the ocean itself. They found a component of lead. It is just unbelievable what everywhere in the planet. And then he went to Greenland and then Antarctica, and the top of it is there. He has to dig into a lot of the graves, and then what he did was he got it from a he got a mummies from the Egypt, actually, in Peruvian mummies, and then he measured the Earth's age. Actually went all the way to Antarctica in the bottom of that, almost he drove to like 200 500 feet to the Antarctica and got the snow and then checked the water for there is no carbon there is no lead there. That is, then he found out eventually with the meteorites, he found out the Earth's age is 4 billion. He is the one who found out the Earth's age. But during this process, he found out the entire planet was filled with lead. American cars filled up all over the world the gas, the lead. That is surprising. There is a woman, she's a doctor, Dr. Alice Hamilton, she is from Chicago. She's from actually Hull House. She was a true physician. She cared for people. She lived it's a poor house, Hull House, and it's like a federally qualified health clinic. She was working there and she was staying with those people. I can tell you that. Then she became eventually, she got a job in professor at Harvard, and then she was talking about the dangers of the lead. She was a champion, and then she passed the first occupational medicine ruling on that one, and she was a real big voice in the against lead. But let me tell you what the lead problem is. Lead is a toxic. What it is, lead mimics calcium. You know that it is actually, if the protein signaling proteins that the biological process and the metabolic process that happens in the signaling process, there is a calcium ion is there. When lead goes inside, it looks like so body doesn't know the difference. It cannot get rid of lead because it thinks it's a calcium. So, but the calcium, that's what it is. It stops all the signaling process and everything. And you see in the right side X-ray, you see the lining of the lead deposits in the bones. It is just unbelievable. So the pregnant woman can pass through a placenta to the babies to the lead. That is a big problem because it has a devastating effect on children. The myelin sheath on the brain of a children, the myelin sheath, the nerve system, that insulation for the nervous, the axon, it affects them. It damages that part. That's why you see a lot of autism spectrum is all the brain damage and everything happens because simple lead. Lead is really toxic. So it can entire body, brain and nervous systems. You can do development of the brain, of course. Anemia, it actually interferes with the red blood cells, and kidney damage. It does the cardiovascular disease. Now, actually, that's a bigger problem. In fact, lead is a direct effect. There's a lot of studies that are done. So many health problems it creates. So in the lead content, so what they found out is Claire Patterson bought the mummies. He measured the lead content. The present day humans, we have 1,000 times more lead than mummies in the 1,000 years ago. The Peruvian and Egyptian mummies we have a 1,000 times higher lead in our bodies than mummies. That simply came from outside. It artificially came from outside, from the leaded gas. This man is responsible. What I understand is he knows the dangers of the lead, but he still continued to profit. He was calling everybody, we are going to make $1 billion out of this gas, and everything he's telling everybody. So so lead levels are dropped. There is a correlation. There is a lot of studies done on lead correlation between the not graduating from high school as a direct effect, the lead content. They check the lead content in the teeth and then find out the not graduating those people. There's a direct correlation in the lead content in the body and they're not graduating from high school. So then not only that, the people who are at the high risk is people who are born in 1951 between 1980, people with the high risk. We have a lot of lead, because I tell you why after that, they're a little safer, people who are born after that. The houses built before 1978, they also have a lot of lead pipes, and lead content is there in the paint and everything. So it's a big problem, lead. So lead levels, violent crimes, there was a direct correlation between the lead content and the violent crimes. There was a lot of studies done, not only in the United States. So that is actually in everywhere. Britain, US, Australia, Canada, they did the studies, they found the correlation between the lead content in the body and the violent crimes. That is very surprising. Then in the cardiovascular level, there's a lot of studies are now being done. Lead levels or violent crimes, not only violent crimes, it is causing a lot of cardiovascular problems. That's what they say, the hardening of the arteries. CDC that immediately dropped the lead levels by the years 1960. They have a 60 micrograms per deciliter they used to have. Now they dropped it slowly by year all the way to 2012 and 2021. They dropped it to 3.5. Now there is no safe level. All of the zero levels are better. That's what they said, CDC. So it is 3.5. That is the acceptable microgram per deciliter. Now, that is a CDC. But how do you find out the lead testing? You can send it through urine, blood, hair, and X-ray. There's not much of a treatment. Chelation therapy is a treatment. The diet and calcium and iron infusions, they're all important. But chelation therapy can take also the good parts of the calcium. So you have to be very careful. So lead poisoning because prevention is the best one. So you can do X-ray fluoroscopy. You can do that. You can find it several ways. You can find the lead testing. It is a comprehensive testing. You have to correlate with other data actually. But Thomas Midgley Jr. He moved to Florida. Actually, not too far from Susan. He died he had a polio. He had a lead poisoning. This guy who he added a lead gas to the gasoline. And then he aged at 55. He invented a mechanical bed, and he was strangled into the death. He was strangled to death in mechanical bed, unfortunately or fortunately. But so World Health Organization. So these are the countries are the biggest These are the countries, they got the lead now from the United States and Washington and everywhere spread out. So Bangladesh, for example, Nigeria has a 45 micrograms per deciliter. That's a dangerous levels. Some children have that one. And Bangladesh has a 9.7, and then China has a lot. One of the highest is the top 10 countries as the lead content in China. There's a lot of small third world countries have the leaded gas. They use it for a long time, so they have all these problems right now. But unfortunately, India doesn't have a lot of cars before 1980s, so that's why but still is not in the top 10 countries. But still, the leaded gas, they use rate in 70s to 19, whatever the small amount they use rate. This is a 40% of children in India in cities, particularly in urban cities, they have more than a 5 microgram per deciliter. That's not acceptable at the CDC level. That's kind of a warning sign. In the United States also, there's a lot, 2.5% children is exposed to more than 5 microgram per deciliter. This is the state of the affairs. You can also, there is a global lead form. You can check in the Google it and check it out. So there is a Flint River. Everybody heard about it. Flint River lead is a dark. That was Leon Peter Walters, the woman with the 4 children, was advocate for. She was complaining, and the Flint officials refused it in the Flint River, and then she found eventually advocate. She's a Dr. Hannah Atisha. She really won. She wrote a book also. She was talking, but she's a pediatrician. She was telling that stop war against children. This is a truly a lead poisoning in the Flint River, and then they tested it and they found out the leaded pipelines that are causing a lot of leaking into the water and causing these problems. And she is a true hero. So she wrote what the eyes don't see, the lead you can't see, but is actually we are waging a war against children. It is if you talk about compassion, that is. This is what killing our own children. That is extreme. So we need heroes. Florence Nightingale. I did a Donna. I did a few of them. Mary Curie. All of them are heroes. Like Susan Davis. She's a hero. She's saving people. So we need more heroes like that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Let me bring Susan back into the system. And Susan, did you hear that about lead? What do you think?
Oh my gosh, that was fascinating and extremely disheartening. But what a fascinating history you put together there. I can't believe how much I just learned. But gosh, it's really disturbing.
Very disturbing. Because I didn't know that when I'm a physicist. Sorry, 1 second. I'm a physicist. I have to put all this together. That's an advantage that from the physics point of view, what does a lead content do? That's a really fascinating story. How one guy just to kill a generation of people, the autism spectrum, you see that kind of things, this is people like you saving people and then other people destroying indirectly. That's it. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's the nature of our world, isn't it? Greed, pushing the envelope on every corner of our planet since the beginning of time, and now playing catch up with our mind, bodies, and souls. And how are we coming together as a global human being population and just saying no? We have to say no to so many things, and the borders don't matter. This is a human being problem. I mean, lead like that's amazing. And the gasoline, lead-based gasoline, everywhere. Those numbers it's really disturbing.
It is disturbing. It went into the oceans. They found out in the ocean, the top of the water, they found out in the ocean top layer is full of lead. And then you have to go all the way to 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet. Then you find the real, there is a lead. That's what they found out. The lead came from outside. That's the reason they found out it came from the leaded gas. It is just now they banned everywhere. Thank God. It is now. It's at least they got census. But a lot of people are paying the price. A lot of children get autism spectrum, and then people have houses in the older houses. All these things, really is a very disturbing. That's a
Well, we are all paying the price for a lot of decisions that were made a long time prior. I mean, a similar study I heard just recently about plastics. I mean, plastics, I don't think there's a drop of water on this planet that doesn't have plastic in it. It's absolutely everywhere. I mean, not nearly as toxic as lead, but anything that doesn't belong in the human body shouldn't be there.
it shouldn't be there.
It's not, plastic's not supposed to be there either. There's just a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. And it begs our health, our health, and what choices are we making that are within our control? I mean,
Thank you
what
for liking
decisions are we
the.
making within our control?
I'm glad that you like the presentation. That is, it's a word. So tell me about the Rescue RN. What kind of things you do in rescuern.com? Is basically, can they online courses, or you provide, and then sometimes you go to physically and the places and then train? Give me
Yeah.
some background in it.
Yeah, so if you go on rescuern.com, you can read a little bit more about my history and kind of where we are and what we're doing. And then there's the Rescue RN Academy in there where you can go in and see. We have 2 courses listed right now. They're code prep teams and then code prep coaches. And we encourage code prep coaches. So the CPR coach is a role that was introduced by the American Heart Association a handful of years ago. And we have been pushing that CPR coach role, with the primary role being good compression. Again, those first early 2 to 6 minutes of cardiac arrest, good compressions, and early electricity. So yes, most the courses are online, and then we can have in-person and or blended learning for our skills sign off, because everyone that becomes a coach has to be signed off on the skills either in person or blended. And I of course way prefer doing it in person.
So there's after the COVID, probably a lot of people also going through a virtual. You have a hybrid kind of thing you're doing right now.
Yeah. Well, and I've been doing this for over a decade in my local area, so it's been quite easy and a lot of fun going into different facilities and different hospitals, inpatient, outpatient, all kinds of areas. I've been able to get them primarily myself, but now we're getting kind of bigger and spreading all over everywhere. So I don't know if, as of today, blended learning I mean, I'm never going to be a huge proponent of blended learning, but now with AI and virtual, and there's so many cool things that are coming up that are making that experience better. But for me, my big push is hands-on, with your team and in that environment. So the best bet is to do it in person. But yes, we do a good job. We've been having fun doing blended learning as well.
So let's talk about this just 1 second about AI. I'm not a great AI is a yeah, AI in nursing. What are the things that you can improve it through AI? What are things AI can play a role in the future of the nursing? Just give us a couple of sentences on that one, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not an expert. It's not my field. It's just something that I've been dabbling in myself. I consider myself a low tech, no tech kind of nurse being on this planet. And if I can use it, then anybody can. But it's virtually everywhere. I mean, we've been using decision support. Now we have language-based decision support. We have so many tools that will alleviate a lot of the tasking that we do. And I know people are worried about it in more ways than one, but ultimately, the speed of artificial intelligence in our world right now, I'm going to say, let's just say in the next 5 years, we'll be able to accomplish what it took the last 100 years to reach where we are now. So it's kind of something you have to get on board with, or really truly be left behind. So many things, many uses in healthcare. I mean, too many to even list.
I want AI to be solving major problems. Cancer, cure for cancer, cure for diabetes, cure for COPD, and then we have a physics, a lot of questions of quantum gravity. There's a lot of things are missing, but until that find out, I don't want to buy AI. Is just going to be the better than everybody else, and let me show me the results. And then I'm in Silicon Valley. I can tell you that just talking is bigger thing than people like you are playing important role saving people. AI is just as some role, but until that day comes, you are the savior. It's truly an honor to talk with you, Susan. You're not only beautiful outside and inside. You're a compassionate woman. and you're truly I'm honored to talk with you, and I'm privileged.
Well, the privilege was truly mine. I just what a blessing to be here, and thank you for that education. I really it was a phenomenal evening. I'm just so pleased. Thanks for having me, and how nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Okay, good night, all of you guys.
Good night.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.